Hi everyone, I'm Jamie Lynn. This is baby Chase. Yay! And we are talking about how I was induced for over 40 hours with both Cervadil and Pitocin at a hospital and never went into labor. Complete failed induction versus 2 other times where I both successfully self-induced at home with castor oil. So I want to tell you both experiences because it's just very, I don't know, scientifically interesting. Before I go on though, I need to point out that everything that I'm going to talk about was done under the guidance of medical professionals. So please do not take my advice for yourself. If you want to, discuss what I tell you with your medical provider so that they can give you the best treatment according to your pregnancy. So last year, I was induced with baby Chase. I was sent to the hospital at 37 weeks and 3 days. I went into the hospital in the morning. Cervadil was administered around 12 noon. And then that was in for 12 hours. So at midnight they pulled it out, and around 2 or 3 a.m. they started Pitocin. The next morning at 8 a.m. my water was manually broken by my doctor, and I continued to try to go into labor. Throughout the entire experience, I probably had about 3 contractions in about 40 hours, which is really terrible. Obviously, that is like a complete failed induction. The next morning when I woke up, I actually was given a C-section because after I'd gone through Pitocin, they did 2 full rounds of Pitocin. I don't remember exactly how long that is, but they just slowly increase your dose until a certain amount, and then they start over. So I had gone through that 2 or 3 times. I honestly don't even know. But like I said, the entire induction process was like 40 hours. It wasn't quite 48. So finally, the morning that Chase was born and then I had the C-section, I actually woke up and I had fever and chills, and ultimately what I had was a low-grade form of strep. And so that's kind of, you don't really want to labor like that with your water broken and a fever, because obviously your baby could catch an infection, which is what actually happened. Chase ended up being in the NICU for the same thing. Streptococcus pneumonitis is what we had. So now let's talk about my other method. So my first 2 children were actually both self-induced at home with castor oil under the guidance of my midwife at the time. So with my daughter, who was my first pregnancy, my first child, I was really leery and kind of freaked out about the idea of castor oil, like a lot of women that come to my channel are. And eventually I got so desperate that I decided to take my midwife's advice. My daughter was born 10 days late and she was 9 pounds. So this was pretty huge. So my midwife advised me to take castor oil. I didn't properly do my research the first time, and I took castor oil after fasting. That does not work. You cannot take castor oil fasting and just drinking like juice and water. So I was really concerned, obviously, because I wasn't going into labor and I wasn't also eating. So I went in because I was seeing my midwife, I don't know, every couple of days because I was already past my due date. And I explained to her like, hey, I tried it, nothing happened. And she was like, oh, honey, you gotta take that with a full meal. So I decided to try it again. That evening, what I did was we had breakfast for dinner. I had pancakes and eggs and all sorts of fun stuff and juice, and like I stuffed myself. And then I drank the castor oil with like orange juice and went to sleep, and my daughter was born the next morning. So learning from that experience with my second child, my son Killian, what I did was we told everyone, we are gonna have this baby on his due date. His due date was 11/11/11, and we were just determined that he was gonna come on that day. And so we planned a castor oil pizza party. We invited all of our friends and said, our son is gonna be born naturally the next day. And they were all like, okay, sure. I don't know, I was just dead convinced that it was gonna work. I was so confident in castor oil working for me a second time. So what we did was had this pizza party, invited all of our friends over, and I had like 2 slices of pizza and just some other snacks, and I had castor oil mixed in like white grape juice or some kind of juice. It was, you know, not extremely pleasant. 2 ounces of juice, and went to sleep. Drank plenty of fluids, got plenty of rest. I rested all that day so that I knew I would be fully prepared. And I went to sleep, and I woke up at like 5:50 a.m. and I was in full-blown labor, and my son was born at 8:11 a.m. So 13 hours after taking castor oil, he was in my arms, which is pretty incredible. I know a lot of people are going to want to hear that. So that was my first 2 children. So I guess to this day, now having both experiences, going to the hospital and having a full-blown hospital drug-induced labor, and that failing versus, you know, my own personal experience of self-inducing at home under the guidance of my midwife, it kind of blows my mind that, you know, a $2 bottle of castor oil, you know, was more successful twice than a full-blown hospital induction. I just like can't fathom it, like with like the strongest drugs and the guidance of doctors and nurses and midwives. It was just, it astounds me that to this day that I went into labor easier using castor oil and faster, and never went into labor with both Cervadil and Pitocin. So I really have wanted to share this story for a while, just because it's really fascinating to me. I am pregnant again for the 4th time, but this time my medical professional, my midwife that I have currently, I do not believe that she believes in castor oil, so I'm going to be experimenting with her method. So she says that she has kind of a tried and true method. So as we get closer, I'm 29 weeks right now, I will be sharing her methods with all of you, because baby Kalina is due on New Year's Eve. So we'll see if we can have her New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. And if this is what you want, this is what you get when you induce. By the way, you get one of these little crying cute babies that wants to eat your phone and throw it on the floor, right, Chaser? So anyway, I just wanted to share my story with everybody and hope that, I don't know, it fascinates you as well, or maybe urges you to talk to your medical professional about castor oil. I don't know, we'll see. I hope it works for you. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. Say bye, Chaser. Say bye. Bye-bye. 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 Good enough.